Welcome to today's explainer. Okay, think about this for a second. We are currently living in a profound modern paradox. We have smartphones that can access literally all of human knowledge in seconds. We have apps that can deliver pad thai to our doors in under 20 minutes, and we enjoy an unprecedented level of personal freedom. Yet, alongside all of this amazing progress, we're experiencing a deep, widespread crisis of meaning and direction. We have all these tools, but we often feel like we're wandering around without a map. So today, we're unpacking a brilliant text titled Architectures of Meaning in a Fragmented Age to figure out exactly why this is happening and, more importantly, how we might actually fix it.
Why are we here? How should we live? For almost all of human history, the answers to these massive, intimidating questions were basically just provided for us. They were baked right into our traditional communal structures and organized religions. But as those structures have weakened over time, modern life has really struggled to replace them. So we're left just kind of staring at our screens, looking at our lives, and genuinely wondering what is ultimately valuable.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the modern meaning crisis. Then, rethinking belief and reality. Third, reclaiming connection and attention. And finally, a new way of living. Let's dive right in.
Part 1. The Modern Meaning Crisis. Wandering without a map.
To really grasp the tension of our time, we have to recognize this fundamental imbalance. We currently possess a borderline godlike power to map, measure, and manipulate our physical reality. We are absolute masters of knowing, right? We track our sleep cycles to the exact minute. We count every single step, and we monitor our macros flawlessly. But here's the catch. All that incredible data completely fails to translate into a meaningful way of being. Information is literally everywhere, but it isn't becoming wisdom. We know how to do almost anything, but we don't know what we should do.
Moving on to Part 2. Rethinking belief and reality, focusing on secularization and science.
A massive shift in our reality lately has been secularization, the overall decline of organized religion. But the fascinating argument the source text makes here is that the antidote isn't just running backward into fundamentalism. Instead, the solution is what it calls spirituality without dogma. It's about keeping that profound, sacred depth to life, actively exploring consciousness, compassion, and interconnectedness, but doing so without demanding that we unquestionably accept rigid historical claims. It's a way to keep the sacred, but drop the rigid dogma.
The second major force shifting our reality is scientific materialism. Now look, science brilliantly explains the physical world. It gives us modern medicine and literally puts rovers on Mars. But a huge problem kicks in when we adopt it as our entire worldview. When we do that, it reduces human beings to mere biological machines. It strips away our inherent meaning and turns our deepest, most profound sense of purpose into nothing more than a subjective psychological illusion. And honestly, that feels pretty empty. So how on earth do we cure this harsh reductionism? Well, the text points us toward a really fascinating philosophical framework called Metamodernism. Think of it as a sweet spot. It moves past absolute, rigid modern certainty, but, and this is key, it totally avoids falling into cynical, postmodern doom and gloom. It's about keeping our fierce commitment to reason and human progress, while just humbly accepting that our knowledge will always be a bit situated and incomplete.
In practice, this framework consciously swaps out our worst modern impulses. It replaces absolute certainty with genuine humility. It trades dark nihilism for actual hope. Instead of just reckless, unchecked progress, it demands responsible progress. And it trades rigid dogma for open-ended inquiry. It's just a beautifully balanced way to view reality, keeping total honesty about our uncertainties while still daring to find meaning.
All right, Part 3, Reclaiming Connection and Attention, Overcoming Isolation.
Now, modern individualism was honestly a beautiful development. It liberated us from oppressive traditions and gave us vital rights and autonomy. But man, there is an immense danger when that drive for total independence pushes us too far. We cross the line from healthy autonomy right into deep, painful isolation, and we become completely disconnected from the very communities that actually sustain us.
So how do we fix this modern isolation? Well, the answer definitely isn't swinging the pendulum back to some suppressive collectivism where everyone just has to conform. The antidote is intentional communal interdependence. It's actively choosing relationships where you can be entirely unique and self-developing while simultaneously contributing to the group. Because meaning doesn't just happen privately inside our own heads, it emerges out there through shared practices, service, and mutual responsibility.
And that brings us to digital saturation. Look, having global connection in our pockets is nothing short of miraculous, but it comes at a remarkably steep cost.
We all know the feeling of a shattered attention span after an hour of mindless doom scrolling, right? But more dangerously, this continuous stimulation substitutes cheap virtual contact for real, physical, embodied presence. We are somehow everywhere at once online, but literally nowhere at all in the real world.
I want to pause here for just a second and ask, what deserves my finite attention? This is such a powerful rhetorical anchor for our lives today. We have to remember that attention isn't just some abstract mental resource you use to navigate apps. It is literally the primary mechanism by which we assign value to our lives. Simply put, what you pay attention to is your life.
Because our attention is finite, we absolutely have to practice embodied offline stewardship. Now, the goal isn't to go throw our phones in the ocean. It's just about intentionally carving out time for the physical world, having real face-to-face conversations, taking a walk in nature without a podcast playing at 2x speed, engaging in craftsmanship, or simply sharing a meal in silence. We have to purposefully root ourselves back in reality.
Which leads us to part 4, a new way of living and the larger synthesis. When we bring all of this together, it gives us a really complete architectural blueprint. Every modern pathology has a constructive, empowering antidote. We counter the loss of transcendence from secularization with dogma-free spirituality. We counter mechanical reduction with the humility and hope of Metamodernism. We fight hyper-individualism with intentional community. And we push back against digital saturation with embodied offline living. Together, these antidotes create a deeply integrated new form of life, built on some pretty powerful paradoxes. We're aiming for science without scientism, spirituality without dogmatism, freedom without isolation, community without conformity, and technology without domination. You see, the next cultural phase isn't about choosing sides in some endless culture war. It's about successfully fusing these elements together without collapsing their beautiful differences.
Ultimately, the cure for the modern crisis of meaning is not a return to the past, but the conscious construction of an integrated way of living. Finding meaning in a fragmented age doesn't just happen to you by accident. It is a deliberate, scientifically informed, and communally rooted project. You literally have to build it. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. How will you consciously construct your architecture of meaning today? Seriously, how will you take these frameworks off the screen and bring them directly into your everyday life? Think about where your attention is going, how you're connecting with your community, and how you are balancing knowing with actually being. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this map helps you navigate the modern world with renewed purpose.